All right, Raheem, so you're calling it an emergency pod. We have some final last-minute thoughts. I'm over at the Majestic in Anaheim, the Majestic Hotel, as my family gets ready to set off for Disneyland tomorrow. I'll be staying behind because of the fight in large part that we're talking about, and that is Errol Spence against Tim Tszyu tomorrow night, or now tonight, because it's the clock is past midnight. You are wherever your whereabouts are, Mr. Worldly Citizen. So let's get into it, man. I picked Tim Tszyu to win this fight for months before when it was discussed. Then once it became official, had big questions about Spence, as everybody else does. And then I see Errol Spence get to fight week with. I see him a couple weeks before the fight look strong, look solid on the mitts with Ronnie Shields. I'm reminded how the jab is the most important punch in boxing, and how excellent Spence's jab has been throughout his career. Then I see him get to fight week in Australia, and I love what I see on the mitts even more. The jab and the two look even sharper with Ronnie Shields. Then I see him shadow box a couple days ago. Love what I see. Looks sharp, stepping around. Never been a huge movement guy, but the jab, the straight left hand, everything looks sharp and on point. But then, as we sometimes second guess our picks, particularly in these 50-50 fights, and this just about is literally a 50-50 fight at the books, you get other thoughts that come to you right before you get to fight night. And I want to share some of them, man, because you said to me so many times throughout this week, it can't end like this in Australia, right? This can't be the end of the road against Tim Tszyu, but it really just might, Raheem. It really just might. You know, the Andre Wards, the Crawfords, the Calzaghes, the Lennoxes, the Mayweathers as of now, right? Unless he fights again, which has been rumored. But usually it doesn't have a Cinderella ending for fighters in boxing. It's become a little bit more common in the modern era, but traditionally not so. And we get to another thing that's accompanied fight week. Jamal Charlo doesn't wind up making it because of his problems with DUIs, everything. He's late on his visa. The whole process doesn't go, so he doesn't make it for his fight. Stephen Fulton, disgracefully, blows not just one weight class, but two weight classes above. Comes in over 9 pounds, gets the fight changed to 133. Can't make that. Comes in at 138, 139. So that. And I look at Spence, who had this fight moved up at last minute to 160. He does make it at 159, but I'm thinking this is an earmark of a lot of these PBC fighters, man. Stephen Fulton, back-to-back fights, blowing weight. Keith Thurman doesn't fight. Fights once in 3 or 4 years. Gets blown out by Fundora. That's where the end of his road ended, in all likelihood, in March. Deontay Wilder, his PBC tenure didn't end great. Then he gets knocked out by Zhang and beaten by Parker. He beats an equally shot Derek Chisora, so good on him for that. Give him credit for that. But, you know, he's at the end of the line. Jermell Charlo hasn't fought in 3 years, just like Spence. The other Charlo can't make it to fight week. Gervonta Davis hasn't fought in a year and a half, coming off a draw. No return into the foreseeable future right now. And it's a pattern here of entitlement. And even Spence showed that this week with getting his way, with moving the weight up. And inactivity. First fight in 3 years. And it's not a good omen. You look at the weigh-in, and I'm not a doctor, but he seems to have his abdomen hunching forward and everything. And I look up, I go, what is that? I asked Grok, I asked the internet, and it says it's pelvic tilt, right? And I look up some of the symptoms of having a pelvic tilt, and it says balance issues. And it's like, I saw that against Terrence Crawford. Even if you just don't take my word for it, people listening, go watch the Ugas fight where he pounded Ugas into submission. His balance wasn't that good. He was still heavy over his front foot, and that's why heading into the Crawford fight, he was so easy to counterpunch for Terrence Crawford. He's heavy over his front foot with the balance and everything. And this may be the end of the road. And for Tim Tszyu, there's still some life and juice in his career. if it's just as a big fish, I guess pun intended, in a small pond in Australia, even if Tim Tszyu isn't really, you know, the true championship caliber of the sport after the couple of knockouts he's endured in his last couple fights, that's still a good and lucrative career to just make good paydays in Australia. For Errol Spence, even if he wins tonight, where's he really going to go from here? He's going to fight a 42-year-old Lara. He's going to fight Jesus Ramos for a WBC belt. I don't think he could even, you know, I don't know if he even wants to get down to 154 to get annihilated by the likes of Virgil and Fundora and Boots Ennis, you know. So whereas Tim Tszyu, he could still fight Aaron McKenna if McKenna wins the vacant IBF belt back home in Australia. He could still, you know, and Spence can too, but is that really what he's here for? I think what I'm saying is I got second thoughts. And again, another one, we're told that he's doing this to give it one last go and everything, but you even get thoughts here, if you're me, of what if this is for the wrong reasons though? What if it's he has another fight on his deal with Al Heyman he has to finish out, and Heyman's just shipping him off to Australia where it's no limit, where it's another promoter's financial responsibility to get it done. He says, well, part of why I want to go over there is I didn't want to do all the interviews back home in Texas. He's done more interviews than Tim Tszyu anyways in Australia. And there's so many people underestimating Tim Tszyu here stateside that Tim Tszyu's kind of just going under the radar. He's the underdog tonight, fighting at home as a slight underdog. And he's got quit in him, and I get all that. I do think Spence has more of that fuck it dog in him. He will go out on his shield. But Tim Tszyu's not some punk, and submitting to Fundora is no shame. I'm not entirely sure at all that Spence would have done any better. Maybe Spence would have went out like Thurman, getting pummeled for 6 rounds, and the ref would have had to stop it, or the corner would have so he wouldn't have he wouldn't have quit like Tszyu did. But people forget, Tszyu was landing bombs, and Tszyu, who's been getting a lot of flack for his defense, he's no Pernell Whitaker in there, but neither is Errol Spence, who's always been hit by right hands against Kell Brook, against Sean Porter, and that was in his prime. And Tim Tszyu has a good right hand. Fundora, he was slipping a lot of shots along with getting lit up with a lot of shots, and Fundora's Fundora. Fundora has an 80-inch reach. Fundora is in his prime and punches very hard and is a natural 154 at 6'6". I got news for you, Spence fans. I don't think Spence would have done much better at all. And Tszyu actually landed some bombs and was fucking him up in the first fight, the first couple of rounds. So I got second thoughts, Raheem. What are your thoughts after the weigh-in and everything? Sorry.
First of all, you're welcome, audience. You're welcome, fans. You are welcome, everybody who is about that action with us. Now you understand why I called this the emergency pod. I talked to Sean, unlike you people, I have the privilege and the honor of speaking to this man every single day. And all of what you just heard was in him. I had to bring it to you. I couldn't let him sleep on this. I couldn't let him wait another 12 hours and think it through. All of what you just heard was the emergency. That's it. That was the thing. I was about to start taking notes. I was like, I don't know how much, you know what I mean? I needed to start remembering all the things. So let's go back, if I can, to the beginning. Yes, we're watching a collapse. This is what happens when empires fall. PBC is an empire, and before all the PBC sycophants and executives get their, their butthole clenched tight, let me remind you, you just made a deal with DAZN, which is going to give you some life support, which is going to give you some extra platform, which is going to give you a little bit of shot in the arm. But what you had in these warriors and what you had in the stable and the fighting inside the stable and not letting people fight off of PBC and, for the moments that they really were running the game, they did well for their fighters. And they allowed their fighters to be, I believe, in most cases, as busy as they wanted to be. And then you'd see Al interject when fighters started to, really want to get action and get active and be fighting off the platform or outside the promotion. And that's when he'd rein him in and give him that business talk and be like, listen, I'm doing something here. I'll give you a little extra bread to not fight. That was kind of the beginning of the end. That's when the transfer goes from what's best for the fighter to what's best for the promoter. And to be fair, he was doing so good for fighters. And you got to remember, everybody didn't make it on PBC. A lot of fighters got paid, got treated very well, and weren't winning and didn't become superstars. And Al still took care of them. I mean, we can't forget, you know, a fighter who got paralyzed.
Pritchard Colon.
What's that?
Pritchard Colon.
I'm not even talking about Pritchard Colon. That was even worse.
Paul Williams.
I'm talking about Paul Williams. But Colon's another one to pull up, and that's an even more severe situation where I believe Al's still taking care of Paul. If you talk to Paul, anytime I encounter him, I ask him that question. You still good? I mean, you know, we don't hear from you, but you good? Al got me. So PBC has done well for their fighters. They allow fighters to do what they want to do and getting them what would be at the time we were talking about overpaid and keeping them away from sometimes the best fights they could get because the fighters were on other promoters. But what happens at the end is at some point, once what's good for the promoter becomes paramount over what's good for the fighter, just like when the government becomes what's more important than the citizenry, it doesn't matter how long, but you are on your way to the end. And we're at the end now. This is how this plays out every time. And so, yes, this is the collapse, but it doesn't have to be the collapse of Errol Spence. There's often that one guy. There's often that one Caesar. There's often that one general in the Gladiator. There's often the guy with the sand running through his fingers, and he says, I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. Errol Spence is that guy. Let me tell you what, man. Errol Spence is that guy. From the ashes will rise the phoenix. He's the guy. And we're seeing all the other warriors fall to the side, and the one will rise to be general and be the guy who is the flagship in the next iteration. Now listen, Errol don't got a lot of runway in front of him. We understand that, right? But I believe because the only person outside the PBC, the zone deal is Tank, they're leaving out the value of Errol Spence. That Errol will be the guy that makes this last run for PBC relevant. If he can get done on tonight's show what is necessary for him to have a final chapter that is appropriate for the kind of fighter he's been, then we're about to see one of the great finishes. And when I watched the weigh-in, when I seen the weigh-in, I didn't watch, to be honest. I've been busy, bro. I didn't watch the mitt work. I didn't see the open workout. I haven't watched the Ronnie Shields footage. I just watched the weigh-in. I barely watched the press conference, to be honest. But when I seen the weigh-in, you know, 3 words came to mind. We must have forgot. That's Errol Spence, bro. Look, it's been 3 years. The last time we see him, he's getting his ass whooped. He's not a charismatic or boisterous guy, so he's not giving you anything extra to get hyped about. But when they faced off, when the shirts were off, when they got off the scale, and it's like, oh, I remember these moments. I remember who this guy is all of a sudden. I know Tim Tszyu is a valid fighter and is a live dog, a real live dog. But that dog's about to get hit by a car, bro. He's about to get hit by a Texas four-wheeler. This is that moment. I'm excited for Errol Spence. I'm excited for what might be coming for PBC. I'm excited for America. We have only one guy over there.
Who made it? Who made it?
Only one guy even made it.
It was supposed to be America versus Australia. That was supposed to be the whole point of the card, and none of our guys made it except Spence.
That was George Washington versus Australia. This guy is about to start the new revolution. This is this is it, man. Because if Errol falls, then it really is bad for PBC. And the Charlo thing, it is what we're looking at right now is evidence of each one of these fighters' Achilles heel, and it just ironically has come into fruition and into prominence on the same night. Charlo, it's his life outside the ring that kept him outside of Australia. Fulton, it's his lack of discipline, entitlement, and clear lack of focus and disrespect for the profession, which I didn't know that was really the case before this, but 6 pounds overweight after you get the weight limit moved can be described as nothing less than those 3 factors. And they're coming to bear on him right now. That is what's keeping him out of the ring. Errol Spence, which will potentially keep him off my Hall of Fame list, because they won't send me one anyway, is the 3 years before the 3-year layoff. The time that he was troubled outside the ring, the time that he went in there with one of the greatest fighters of all time in Terrence Crawford, ill-prepared, underprepared, knew it wasn't a fight he should be in and he wasn't ready for it and went in there anyway. That, all of this thing is up against the 3 years after. And I believe him when he says he's been living clean. He has been focused. He stayed in the gym. The body testifies to that. A guy who hasn't been in the gym for those 3 years, hasn't been in the gym for 3.5 years, and in the last 6 months has gotten in there, don't look like that.
I don't see 8-pack Errol. I don't see 8-pack EJ though.
But I see a solid. I see 4.5 pack. I see a solid, strong, hydrated, not drained Errol Spence. That's a guy who's been working, and he's not getting younger, he's getting older. I can understand him being at a higher weight. But what I also see is that killer, that stone-faced, deadpan killer. The only thing I see, and the only thing in the weigh-in that gave me any trepidation about my pick, and I'm doubling down. I'm saying Spence stops him, and this time without laughing. Spence stops him. The only thing that is giving me trouble is that rat tail. That's the only that bit right there is I'm concerned about. I want him to have that coming to America moment. You know what I mean? $8 shave up. You know? That might be the extra weight. That's probably why you had to move the weight up. You cut that rat tail off, you can make 54. You know what I'm saying?
Sean Porter did have to cut his hair to make weight for Ugas. But Raheem, I am nobody to critique haircuts. Apparently. Okay? I'm nobody to poke. Yeah, you're good.
Talk about killers. Some of the greatest killers we've ever known have worn that haircut.
That's true.
So, the abdomen being protruding. Okay, so yes, I'm sure there is a medical explanation for that, but there's also a cultural one. Eddie Murphy coined that as the shitty walk. You know, the uncle with the shitty walk? That's what that is. That's like, everybody's got an uncle at the barbecue with that walk. That uncle can also fight and he can grill. And we know that Errol Spence famously grills. He has barbecues in his backyard. It's a thing. He talked about it even in the build up to this fight. It's part of his cultural makeup. And so is that weird posture and walk. I don't see that as a problem whatsoever. Now, is he just becoming an unk? You know what I mean? And in the last stages of his big fish, strap season, young fighter career, you're watching a little bit of the unk transition. That's all that is.
Unk.
He can fight. Only thing he can do better than grill is fight. That's what everybody's unk is like with that shitty walk.
Yeah, and Unk can, get down at the barbecue, but I don't know about 12-round,
Ain't gonna be 12 rounds because he's stopping them.
All right.
Spence in 6.
All right.
Ain't gonna be 12 rounds.
All right, well, okay, but he talked about the numerous false starts he had to eventually put together a full training camp, right? And I had Kenny Porter's voice in my head today remember I was watching Floyd have his exhibition with Logan Paul. Floyd got out of the ring and went on to say in that post-fight, I know I can't do this anymore. My body isn't meant for this kind of thing. And then he winds up fighting a slew of much smaller, less athletically gifted, even though, yeah, it's Logan fucking bitch-ass Paul we're talking about, but smaller, less athletically gifted people than Logan Paul. And it's because what his original instinct coming out of that ring was, this was, at my age and my size, this was too much. This wasn't smart, right? Before he even got to the post-fight, I'm watching the fight at Sean's, and I'm watching it with Kenny, and Kenny goes, his body's in shock right now. His body knows he can't do this anymore. 30 minutes later at the post-fight in Miami, he says that, right? And Errol said a few times in his camps that never were, until he finally was able to summon up a full camp for Tim Tszyu, it was, my body would go into shock sometimes, and it was really hard on my body, and I'd have to give it up and then put it off for another attempt and put it off for another attempt. That might not be a good sign. And I know guys like my guy Tim Bradley and others are pointing out the 3 years of rest are going to do him good, while Tzew's been stopped a couple times in the last 3 years. Or his body was trying to tell him that I can't really do this anymore. I don't want to, but he summoned it up for one. And what makes you so confident that he's this outlier from everyone else we mentioned and you look at Tim Tszyu, him fighting twice this year, against low-level comparative opposition, right? But a reason a lot of fighters, why don't fighters fight more often? They used to fight. I was reading Ali's resume last night just randomly. I do things like this. He would fight like 5 times a year, 4 times a year, 5 times a year in the mid-70s when he was the most popular fighter in the world. And part of it is guys always want to have their number who still loves the process of camp and fighting and is willing to do it for a lesser number because he's that much hold on, my internet trying to restabilize. All right, but anyways, he's that much forthright in continuing his journey consistently in the sport, right? So when you got one guy like that in Tim Tszyu who's willing to still take the less money, to stay busy, to not skip steps in the process of continuing your professional career, and Spence is just coming back, with everything else we've mentioned, what makes you really think he's the outlier from the Thurmans, the Fultons, the Charlo brothers, the Tanks right now, etc.? Hold on. And a guy like Tszyu, after getting stopped where, for all intents and purposes, this fight tonight could be his tune-up comeback fight after a year out of the ring, where everyone in today's era would understand that after what happened in the Fundora rematch and what's happened in the last couple fights, but he didn't. He still shows the willingness and the desire to go through camp, fight for a lesser number, trust the rebuild process, and go back to the drawing board, take 2 fights for lesser money to be prepared for this kind of fight. The little things, the disciplined things that perhaps an entitled, very paid, deservedly so, Errol Spence over his career didn't want to do. Why does he get to skip those steps and someone like Tim Tszyu doesn't? And he's going to be this outlier. And by the way, the real golden childs left for PBC are 2 of the children that they probably didn't love the most as their kids the most. And that was David Benavidez, who is the franchise player now, with Tank not able to get his shit together right now. And David Benavidez, who tried to leave for Top Rank, they probably didn't like him for that for a number of years. I happen to kind of have a good estimation. They wanted Caleb Plant to actually beat David Benavidez, right? Caleb Plant, another guy, hasn't fought since Armando Resendiz. Let's put him in there with everybody else too, right? Whose career is slowing down tremendously. And Sebastian Fundora, I don't think they ever sat around thinking Fundora is going to be one of the real franchise players. I mean, they've done good with him. They have. But those are the last 2 hungry. And even Benavidez, who I love, he's got some out every now and then, this latest stuff going on outside the ring. God bless him with the wife on Instagram, and and I hate even bringing that up, but But and sometimes the weight fluctuations, and can he get, but Benavidez and Fundora are like the last two hungry, relatively active, fighting motherfuckers they got. And everyone, what makes him the outlier? Again, when Tszyu is the guy willing to take this pay cut for 2 fights, go through the rebuild stage. Why is that?
Fundora and Benavidez are the young lions. What I'm talking about is the original class, the foundational PBC champions, the people who represented the C in PBC. That is the Errol Spence class, and he's the last.
And think of how Danny went out. And think how Danny went out too of that class. Right. I mean, there's just more and more examples, right?
Yeah, but for me, all those examples mean that we're boiling down to the one guy. This is the last one left. This is the guy. This is the big fish. This is strap season. This is the moment for this guy to represent that era, that class, those foundational champions in this next moment, which will be his last moment, not this fight, but this moment, which I believe might extend to 2 more fights after this. And then the Benavidez, Fundora, those people have, to pick up the torch, pick up the baton, and keep PBC alive and keep it running. And that's what we're about to see if PBC is about to survive. This difference between Errol Spence and Tim Tszyu is that Errol Spence is a future Hall of Famer, and Tim Tszyu is trying to live up to his last name. This is a difference in talent. This is a difference in exceptionalism. Now, I know that there has been a moment in boxing with one of those old lions classically cursing himself by
special.
Common. Well, Tim Tszyu's not common. He's better than common. But Errol Spence is special. And if he's going to do what he, I believe, had the potential to do with his career, he has to get it done tonight. This is the actual special chapter. Those things about his stop and start, well, you know what? That's him paying those dividends for those past transgressions, just like Charlo's paying now, just like Fulton's paying now. He's taken those 3 years, and yeah, I'm sure because he was drinking, he was living outside the lifestyle of a professional athlete, much less a professional boxer. He'll tell you himself that these things that I've mentioned and others were causing him to self-destruct. So when you start to get back into that kind of demand on your body, it's going to resist because you hadn't, even when you were young and able to overcome the adversity you were putting on yourself, your body was strong enough, young enough, resilient enough to fight the battle for you, and you could still perform. But you take that time off, get your ass whooped, you lay around a little bit, and those other bits start to come on board. He admitted after the car accident he was still drinking. He said he wasn't drinking and driving no more. Let's hope that's true, but let's hope that's true. And what did Andre Ward say? Oh, you hard-headed. What did his mother say? Or you don't take nothing serious. Well, yeah, a lot of times talented guys are either like Jordan and Kobe, where they take everything too serious and every microaggression is a huge disrespect. Or they kind of take it for granted because it's a bit too easy for them, and they put challenges on themselves instead of taking external challenges, internalizing them, and making that fuel. Well, now, I believe, in this time that Spence has had off to get his mind right, to get his body right, and to get right for this fight, he has taken those internal challenges and made them fuel instead of internal opposition. We'll see. But that's what I saw in the face-off. That's what I realized is this moment. It's all on him. He got PBC on his back. He got America on his back. He got the whole of Texas on his back. He got the Spence name, legacy on his back. He got that Hall of Fame bubble on his back. And tonight, it's either the beginning of the next chapter or it's the end of all the rest of those chapters. I believe in him. I seen it. That's the difference.
All right, so again, he gave a little bit of that dismissive look to, to Tszyu as they ended their face-off at the weigh-in. And I feel like that's how a lot of people here stateside are looking at Tim Tszyu, ignoring his pull counter game, his how sharp he is, the talent and the genetics he inherited from his dad. He's not his dad, but he inherited some good talent, good fighter in his own right, and got a good right hand. Tim Tszyu's been hit by right hands since his prime. He's never been some defensive wizard. We'll see what's up. I'll tell you what. I'm going to bring it back. So my prediction earlier in the week my final prediction at that time was Spence is going to get buzzed early in this fight. I still believe that. I think Tszyu's going to come out throwing heat. And you could easily argue, bro, that Tszyu is throwing more heat in terms of a speed-power combo than Spence, who's a workhorse and a grinder with heavy hands, right? But that quick snap, I think that's more Tim Tszyu right now. I think again, the original prediction earlier this week was he's going to buzz Spence early. Spence is going to have the composure and the grit of a champion to get through that. He's going to get through that. The jab is going to start pumping. And then as the ring rust comes off, he's going to swing this fight in his favor. But Tim Tszyu, in the championship rounds on the back end, with everybody talking about he's shown he's quit against Fundora, and him fighting in his backyard, trying, yes, to get out of his dad's shadow, he's not going to go silently into the night. And there's going to be fireworks down the stretch of this fight between two past their prime, but still capable guys, and it's going to be very entertaining. Spence, with his trademark volume, will, over the course of 12 rounds, land more consistently than Tszyu. This is going to be a close fight on the cards, and Spence, with his volume, will win a decision in a very tight fight. Should I stick with that pick, or do you think all of what came to me in the final hour should make me change that pick, Raheem? Your conviction. You've always been great at picking fights. Should I stick to that breakdown and take it on home?
You have a coin in your pocket?
I don't. I don't.
I think the truth is
I'm going to because I trust. I will. All right. I will. But I had to get my worries out. Huh?
I think you've already switched your pick in your mind, but you don't want to put that down on record because you have this trepidation about being wrong, and I'm very convincing.
Yep.
And you feel it. I threw that America shit in there just to really turn the knife on you.
Yeah.
I think, man, look, I think you got another 20 hours, maybe 20 or so hours. So let's not say that this is your final pick, because until the first bell rings, I am a full true believer a pick can be switched. It all counts until the first bell rings. Right now, just right now, what is your pick?
I'll stick with Spence. I'll stick with Spence by decision in an entertaining fight, in a very entertaining fight.
Radio Raheem picks. History need a fix. Spence in 6. So what's holding you back? What you gotta give me the recipe to this disaster. What is it that's keeping you from just? I don't usually see you like this.
I have been more lately, more second guessing myself, but especially in a fight that's almost literally 50-50 with pundits and everybody. It's because I like even Rolly and Tio next was like, part of me just wants to lay off and be like, look, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I know if I do switch to Tszyu tonight, right, in the next 20 hours, it'll just be the same second guessing I just did in having Spence. I know it'll just replay all over. I'll go watch Ronnie Shields on the mitts again and go, why'd I do it? Why'd I switch? You know, I'll nitpick everything about why Tszyu should wind up losing after all. I'll go back and forth. Look, I'll just stick with Spence by decision. If I'm wrong, that really sucks. But
Sean,
I'll yeah. This is the feelings, you know.
Zittel fans out there, this is what the man goes through.
It's agony
on your
sometimes.
behalf. He cares. The reason we had this emergency pod is because I hear all of this in real time. I think he started the show with 8 minutes. I think
Yeah.
8 minutes. That's what I knew you needed to hear. And here at the end, you don't have anybody in boxing who cares more than Sean, who is up at night in the middle. It's 10 p.m. where I'm at. What time is it where you are?
It's 2 o'clock in the morning in
2
Anaheim.
o'clock in the morning.
And I'm outside of my hotel room.
He's outside. This man has a full-fledged family sleeping. Yeah. And I was like, get up out of bed, get your son off your chest, get outside. This is an emergency.
And this is part of it too. Leo has Spence, and Samantha, she's hearing me, have my frantic last hour, everything I said, and she's like, just stick with Spence. Like, he's got,
The real hero is Samantha. Like, if what I listen to is what you have time to tell me on the phone and via text, what is she going through? This is the first time I even thought about that.
Yeah.
This is our Nancy Reagan. She's really running the country.
I mean, I picked Boots last month, but all the last 2 weeks, I'm like, I don't know, but Xander and this and that. And she's like, dude, Boots is gonna fucking kill him. Just stick with Boots, all right? And I did. But all week in Brooklyn, she was like, no. So, Sammy's holding me down. We'll keep it Spence.
What he goes through for you people. The other problem is, you have the weight on your shoulders of being right. I am just you, and you know what it is. You also, what you can't admit is that you want Spence to win. See, I can say that. I'm allowed because I don't have to be right. I can be emotional. They can tell me in the comments I'm in my feelings because I am. When I say I am, that's exactly where I'm at. That's why I said it. You're not, that's not a roast. I told you. So you, on the other hand, you can't be biased. You fight that, and it's a good fight that you're fighting.
No, I don't. No, I really don't. No, I liked him. I like.
You need that.
No,
you need
Tim.
America. Hey, I know. I don't.
No, seriously, what it is I just look. If I get it fucking wrong, I get it wrong. But I don't need to be lectured after it. It's like, well, Spence was 3 years off. Spence won't be able to take a punch. Spence's reaction times won't be good. It thinks I'm giving a thumbs up. I understand all these possibilities, and really, no, I'm not biased in this one at all because I covered Errol a long time, and I really like Tim Tszyu. Like, I like dealing with Tim Tszyu. He's a straight up, kind of straight shooter kind of guy. So I would be happy for Tim if he can win a fight like that. May the best man win. It's not fun getting into the comments when you get one wrong. It's not fun. So that's what makes me labor over trying to be right. If you're going to get on this mic and speak, you want to actually be insightful. So I want to be accurate as much as possible. So anyways, we've rambled on long enough.
If I've proven anything in the longevity and the totality of my career, it is that you can be great and wrong.
Yes.